Hello and welcome to Life Work with Maya. My name is Arjun and I am the producer of this show. And this is episode number 3 out of 5 around the August reset. These were originally released a few seasons ago when we were releasing in seasons. And we're pulling them back out of the archive while Maya takes a August reset herself. She'll be back soon with new content. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy this episode.
This is Life Work with Maya, where we talk about success on your terms and tune in to work and lives that feel spacious, abundant, and aligned with who we truly are. Hello, and welcome to episode 3, part 3 of our August reset series. So we're slap bang in the middle of this reset now, as well as being well into August. What have you noticed? Have you noticed a change in pace? Do you have a word that sums up your August so far? My favorite August word is probably languorous, and my song is quite an old classic, Summertime. Summertime in the Living is Easy. I'm curious about whether you also have a song or a word that captures your August. These things can help to sort of make it more memorable, capture a feeling. Ironically, today we're also going to move beyond words and we're going to focus on probably one of the most powerful tools that I work with in my coaching, and that is the metaphor. So if you've reached this part of the summer series, that's great and you're well into your journey. Don't be scared off by the concept of metaphor. I've deliberately selected it for today's episode because it is something that I think we can access a little bit more during the summer when we may well have those moments. I'm thinking drink in hand, sitting out, staring out onto maybe a natural scene or sitting in a park where our minds can be a bit more expansive and roam free, particularly if we did engage with the switching on and switching off process last time. So let me just tell you a little bit about metaphor and why it is so powerful in my coaching. And particularly, I use metaphor a lot with my male clients. Let me read you something about metaphor first. Metaphor is another kind of way to talk about human feelings. The English words about feelings are very limited. Again, metaphor makes it possible to get a new sound and a new sight, a new touch, a new feel, and a new thought about something. This is what creates change. And this is from the Satir model, Family Therapy and Beyond, Virginia Satir et al. But what exactly is metaphor? So a lot of times we are using metaphor without even realizing it. If we use phrases like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, we are using a different object or scene to convey the current reality that we are experiencing. And we're drawing parallels between, it could be objects, it could be a scene, it could be animals, it could be anything that we can describe and perhaps others can relate to that might best represent the feeling that we have or the change that we want to make. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples of the way metaphor is used so that perhaps you can think about what might be relevant for you here. 2 common ways that I use metaphor in my coaching. One is where I have clients who want to make an emotional shift. So I often have, again, with my male clients, as leaders, there is a lot of emotional management that needs to occur. They both need to be able to manage their own emotional states, but they need to manage the emotions of others as well. And this can be problematic, and often it can expose us to sort of emotions that we haven't had to deal with before, or we might realize that we have a short fuse. And so, for example, with one client, this is something that he really wanted to work on, and we thought about an appropriate metaphor, and he described it as the boiling kettle. So this was an example of how his temper, he could notice in certain situations, was getting irritated, and he was sort of starting to get increasingly angry. And he described this to me as a boiling kettle. And this gave us a really useful idea to work with, because we were able initially for him to just observe that, because when it comes to behavioral change and emotional regulation, one of the first steps is just being able to observe it. And it was really a wonderful experience, because over a number of sessions we reached a point when at the end he sort of said to me, he's really moved forward on this journey and is in such a better position when it comes to managing his own temper now. And when we came up with sort of what it now feels like, we said, well, it's no longer like a boiling kettle. It's much more like a cup of tea. So it's not that the initial reaction disappears. And I've mentioned this on the self-regulation episode, which was one of the recent bonuses. It's not that the reaction disappears. It's just that now he's able to make it palatable. It's something which he can recognize, and it's no longer boiling. It's actually something that is drinkable. And obviously a hot cup of tea is almost a product of a boiling kettle. So there was a relationship there. And it was just a really nice way to acknowledge where he's moved in this journey in terms of regulating his emotions. That's one lovely way that it came about in terms of metaphor. The other way is where we are thinking more about our vision for ourselves as leaders, as executives. And I had a client who was describing herself as very much feeling like she was in the water swimming with her team. She was used to rolling up her sleeves. She's used to getting, the minute that there is any kind of emergency or crisis situation, her reaction is she's a hands-on person. She dives in, gets in there. But because of that, she also couldn't see the wood for the trees. And just to point out, that's actually a metaphor as well, being able to see the wood for the trees. But she was feeling like she was too immersed in the water with her team. And what we reached over the coaching was a position where she then described it much more as she was the captain of the ship. She was out of the water. She had the vision. She was able to anticipate the icebergs. She was able to navigate the ship, and she wasn't getting lost in the water. And when we went through this process and she was able to describe this, it was quite a goosebump moment. She also turned her screen around and showed me her current view, because she was lucky enough to be able to have a view of a huge lake. And so it really brought home this metaphor. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because I want to emphasize the different ways that metaphor can help us to capture things. It can also really lighten the tone in a coaching session. Metaphor can make us feel more playful. It can just make some of these big, heavy concepts that we're thinking about feel more fun, more light, and not weigh us down so much. And metaphor also accesses a different part of our brain. So it is using more imagery, so it's almost more visual, and it activates probably that more creative side of us. And that's why in August, I think we're really well placed to do this, because we may not be operating at the same pace that we're normally operating in, and our mind has time to actually develop some really helpful metaphors. And that's why I wanted to bring this up today. So I'm going to now shift this onto you all and ask you to engage in a thought experiment. So currently in August, and you may have a sense of where you are with your August, how you're feeling about work and life. And I would just ask you, in that context, what would be an appropriate metaphor for you now in August? How would you like that to look in September? And how would you like that to look at the end of December? So I'm pushing it quite far. I'm asking you to do a couple of things, both come up with a metaphor and then visualize it into the future. But this is often the way that I work in the coaching, where we say, okay, well, what does it currently feel like and how do you want it to look? So it wouldn't be fair of me to ask you to do that without sharing some real examples. So I actually had to pause this recording to think about my own metaphors. And the way I would describe it is, at some point in August, I'm really conscious of life and work and everything feeling like a bit of a full cupboard. And there's a lot in there. It's all nice stuff, but it's pretty full, possibly overflowing a little bit and a bit messy. And when I hit September, I want it to feel really organized, decluttered, and visually very tidy looking, and to give me a sense of calm when I look at that cupboard. And that's how I want it to stay all the way till December. And if I could get to the end of December with it still looking orderly, and yet the items in it are very well used and utilized, then that to me would be a great place to be. So that's my personal metaphor, or one example of one. And I really encourage you to, as part of this week, finding a moment to daydream a little bit and think about where you are in your life and work and what the metaphor is and how you want that to then look in September. And again, I do want to sell metaphor to you. It is simply amazing how clients will come and say, "Oh, you know, that thing that we described, it's really come to fruition. It's amazing." There is something about saying these things out loud. There's something about visualizing them. There's something about writing them down that crystallizes them, that almost focuses, for those of you who may or may not be into all of this stuff, but I think it focuses the universe towards what it is that you actually want. And it can help us give that crystal clear clarity and therefore direct the system and the resources of the universe towards our goals. So let me know how you get on with it. I hope that it's a fun summer thought experiment for you. And I look forward to connecting with you in the last couple of episodes of this August Reset series. And just to sort of prime you for the next couple of episodes, we will be now slowly directing ourselves towards some slightly more worky topics. So stay tuned and let me know how you get on. As usual, you can connect with me via Instagram. You can also find me on LinkedIn if you type in Maya Gutka. And if you want more content and if you want videos, then my YouTube channel I'm uploading weekly videos there. The theme there is what you don't learn at business school. So this is sort of my alternative lessons that I have picked up along the way, both in my own career journey and through coaching the hundreds of people that I have now coached. So if you want to check that out, please do, and let me know how you find it. And I look forward to connecting with you next time. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Life Work with Maya. If you've got to this point, I'm guessing you found it valuable, so do share the link with somebody else who can benefit. In an age of materialism and us trying to stay on top of clutter, what could be nicer than to send a non-clutter digital link to somebody and say, "I listened to this and I thought you might love it." What a great way to show your care and consideration for them. If you haven't left a review, now is the time, and make sure that you are subscribed on Spotify or you're following along on Apple Podcasts. And if you really want to help the show grow, then do share the link on IG stories, Instagram stories, or reshare or discuss your thoughts with my LinkedIn posts. You can find me on LinkedIn and Instagram. Do feel free to send me messages there. I love having dialogue with my listeners, and the links to those handles are in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you next time. Bye-bye.